sound comes out. Good morning, and it's well, a funny sort of morning this morning. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart, from the Black Horse pub. We are getting things wrong today. But never mind. We are born of Jack DiManio. Jack DiManio was a BBC DJ in the 50s or 60s and managed to get everything wrong. Absolutely everything. Well, you're looking outside at outside the Black Horse pub, Western Road, which actually segues, if that's the right word, joins seamlessly into Lewis High Street, just a couple of hundred yards further on. It sits opposite to a historic site. Like most historic sites, pretty dull in itself, but its past is pretty exciting because it's attached to the Battle of Lewis, in which the first signs of democracy were born, or ignited, or whatever. I guess we should take a look at the weather, shouldn't we? Today it's going to reach 16 degrees, and oh yeah. Dear. But thanks, that's Ada in the background, who's been helping me no end set up this one. Why on earth I choose to sneeze? At this particular moment, I have no idea. No idea at all. That's the way of the world, isn't it? It's the way of the world. Anyway, it's going to be 16 degrees, scattered cloud, some rain, a gentle breeze, and a weather warning. And the weather warning is for tomorrow. Starting at 1 o'clock tomorrow and lasting until 12 o'clock noon on Tuesday on the 9th. So from 1 o'clock in the morning till noon, there's a yellow warning out of winds. They're likely to bring hazardous coastal conditions and could cause some inland disruption. So there you are. That's the weather warning. It's 1 o'clock tomorrow in the morning, that is. We drop a bit in temperature. 16 today, only 12 tomorrow, 13 Wednesday, 14 Thursday, and then, wow, God bless, is 16 and sunny on Friday. Does that presage a good weekend? Well, who's to tell? All right, let's get to the serious business of the newspaper headlines. for a moment, let's remind you that you're looking out on a Lewis Street in the traffic. People walking and driving and going by bus to work on a Monday morning. I'm already in work and sneezing all over the place. Achoo, achoo. Dear, dear, dear. Come on, Keith. Get to the newspaper headlines. The first one, the Daily Telegraph, is Cameron warns the United States of a Kiev aid block. What that's all about is that at the moment, aid to Ukraine is being held up in the House of Representatives. The Foreign Secretary, that's Cameron, will warn that the US is risking the security of the West by holding up this package when he visits Washington. Lord Cameron will meet the House of Representatives Speaker, Mike Johnson, to urge him to stop his Republican colleagues from blocking the aid. Also on the front page is ex-post office boss Paula Vanells is seen in public for the first time since the ITV drama highlighting the post office scandal. The Times, rise of the 24-hour wait for a bed in A&E. The crisis in the hospitals gets worse. The Times focuses on more than 150,000 patients waiting for more than 24 hours in A&E before getting a hospital bed last year, a tenfold increase on 2019. Speaking of the figure obtained by the Liberal Democrats, the party leader, Sir Ed Davies, called for more hospital beds. The Times also reports the UK can continue to sell weapons to Israel, according to the Deputy Prime Minister, amid pressure to publish the government's legal advice about the war. The Metro. Punishment isn't working. What it says is 280,000 hours of community service are being written off. Those figures are coming from the Labour Party. The paper says thousands of criminals are getting away without completing unpaid work. They've been ordered to do that by the courts as part of their punishment. Also on the front is Russell Cook, nicknamed Hardest Geezer, depicted as he crosses the finish line in Tunisia after running the full length of Africa. Woo! The Guardian. Carers taken to court over heart-rending minor errors. The Guardian reports tens of thousands of unpaid carers looking after relatives are being forced to repay huge sums to the government and are being threatened with prosecution after breaching earning rules. It says carers claiming £81.90 a week for carers allowance while working part-time are being forced to pay sums overpaid to them, in some cases running to more than £20,000. Russell Cook also appears on The Guardian, where he's quoted as saying, "I'm a little tired." That's the guy who's run the length of Africa. I would think I'd be a little tired after that as well. The Eye. sign NDA to seek charges and new build owners told. That's a bit cryptic. What that's about is homeowners are being told that they must sign non-disclosure agreements if they want to see details of their rising service charges. This is on the states, I guess. The legal contract would prevent the residents on a new build estate in Newcastle from sharing the information. A government spokesperson told the paper the use of NDAs in these instances was completely inappropriate. So why are they doing it? I assume it's the estate agents who are being charged and the government taking them to court. But it seems that the government is fighting with itself. Very difficult. The Daily Mail.
Is that your hat I just found? Is that one of yours?
No, that's Stuart's.
Oh, okay.
We found Stuart's hat. That's all it is.
I thought you was only the only slick guy in Lewis.
No, I'm not the only one that wears a hat. The Daily Mail. Rayner's making a fool of you, Keir. The Daily Mail reports the Conservative Party's chairman is criticising Labour leader Keir Starmer's unwillingness to probe claims over his deputy chairman's criticism. Let's get this right. Rayner is making a fool of you. The Conservative Party's chairman is criticising Labour leader. There we go. Right. It's the Conservative Party's chairman who is criticising Keir Starmer's unwillingness to probe claims over his deputy's property dealings. Angela Rayner has denied any wrongdoing and said she has received legal advice. No rules were broken. And there's also an actress, Lily James, is pictured in Milan at Dolce and Gabbana exhibition. She looks pretty good to me. Financial Times. Biden is poised to warn Beijing against aggressive tactics in the South China Sea. The FT says Joe Biden is going to warn China about its aggressive tactics in the South China Sea when he meets a summit with the leaders of Japan and the Philippines. American officials say Mr. Biden will express concern about Filipino Marines on a ship in the Spratly Islands that Manila is being prevented from resupplying the islands due to the Chinese Coast Guard. The paper adds Washington is pushing for Japan to join the United States and the United Kingdom and Australia in a security pact. The Daily Express exposed care home crisis putting Britain to shame, says the Express. The Express reports on the care home crisis putting Britain to shame, with 1 in 5 sites ranked inadequate or requiring improvement. The paper also asks, is this the best ever Premier League title race? Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal are set for a 3-way battle for the title. And the Sun, does it bring a giggle to our face again? No. Deadly ops on sale in UK hotels. It says road show flogs bum lifts in Turkey. There's some reports on people being pressured into signing up for cosmetic surgery in road shows at UK hotels. The tabloid found medics from Turkey were exploiting loopholes to offer consultations for discounted surgeries. A barrister told the paper that their investigation found serious clinical misconduct. Ooh, we've still got the Mirror. Same theme. Turkey, vet, and Turkey, vet and a nose job package. The Mirror splashes on plastic surgery, saying Turkish clinics are offering cut price deals, combining pet treatment and plastic surgery. It observes this comes as a vet costs soar in the UK. One clinic offers cat care and a nose job for £4,500. Also pictured is TV personality Gemma Collins and her new fiance. She tells the paper she wants 3 weddings. Whoa. Well, now we got a second star paper. The sausage dodgy, it says. A terrier dog, that is, appears on the front page of the Daily Star as the tabloid reports a dog who appeared to growl sausages on a TV show that's live only made the noise because his owner was annoying him by gripping his throat. Co-hosts of the BBC One show, Dame Esther Ranson, 83, and Paul Heine, 74, said there were fears the stunt may have been cruel. Well, I say.
When I was a kid as well, that dog.
You would say?
I watched that on the TV when I was a kid. That dog saying sausages.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm. I didn't know he was cruelly done or something.
Well, nobody at the time. Now,
everything's politically
20 years later, we're always looking back. I don't know whether you notice it, but the people who are very proper and yelling, sue them, don't do it about their own lot at the moment. It's always something in the past, 20 years in the past. They are judging us and what we have to do, and that's not on.
Didn't hurt us, did it, the past?
Let us judge you. You can't get any governance right? You can't actually govern the country. We got 2 ridiculous political parties vying for power. People in them who are more ridiculous than ridiculous. And some of the things that you actually look at are ridiculous in themselves. And then you decide that you're going to look back on what we did. Ha! Get with it. Not on. Right. That's it's now 21 minutes past 8. Let me give you the weather again. $15 degrees today. $15 and sunny and a moderate breeze. A weather warning issued for midnight tonight or 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, lasting for 12 hours of high winds, likely to bring devastation to coastal communities and some inland. So you have to be careful about debris driving, and all those things that high winds bring. So be careful. Okay, that's the those are the news headlines. A bit of a mixed bag this morning, which means that nothing terribly important is happening. And we've got Susie coming along in a minute or two. He sets me straight. He sets us all straight. So yes, where the winds are coming from, I don't know, but they are making poor weather really, really very bad. Just very quickly, let me tell you that two of our team are quite poorly. One is Richard Barton. I dropped around to see him the day. Oh, thank you. And he was too poorly to see me. And the other is Liza Page, who stays in touch and has been advised by her medical staff to leave it for another couple of weeks before they come back. Now, here we are. Beauty and the Beast, good morning.
You calling me a beast? Good morning, Beauty.
How are you?
Oh, very tired this morning, to be honest. But other than that, I'm fine. Yeah.
What are you doing to make you tired, or shouldn't I ask?
No, it's fine. Well, last week was very busy, but I'm busy decorating the top floor of the house at the moment. So I'm sort of doing 2 bedrooms at once. So I'm sort of flitting between the two with lots of paint and lots of different. And I just get, whatever I do, I get splattered, absolutely covered. So yeah. So lots of painting and lots of trying to not get covered in paint. As you can see, I've painted my floor blue. I'm still wearing it.
I see. It's the merge, is it?
Yeah.
Well, what do you make of? There are a couple of stories there I thought that it might concern you, but the interesting thing is that you're young and I'm old. And
I'm younger. I'm not young.
Well,
I'm middle-aged. That's not young.
You're just a young sprout as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if I don't smell like one.
Now, the NHS crisis, the rise of the 24-hour wait for a bed in A&E. As you know, you and I are having a little bit of a fight with not so much with the NHS, but the support for medical things. What's your view? What's happening with the NHS?
Well, I think Brexit killed us all. Basically, there's not enough staff. There's just not enough people. The structure of the NHS is fractured. It's not working. It's just not working. And if something isn't working, you've got to start again and fix it. But it's so complex and so deep that actually, how can we fix something that's so, deeply broken, without just scrapping the whole thing, starting again, or going like America and doing private healthcare, which I think is really probably the way forward. Not that we can probably afford it, but neither can the Americans.
Well, explain what you mean by America, because
I think
I'm
they have
not
to.
familiar with the American system, and I'm sure a lot of viewers aren't.
Well, not overly. All I know is I've got a friend out there. Is you pay for your prescription, so you pay for your healthcare, and so you get seen. And if you don't pay for your healthcare, you don't get seen. So it's. I know we pay out NHS, but I don't know how it actually works. But I know that you've got to pay for your I don't know. Well, I'd say I'm bluffing it, but all I know is that they pay like privately. So we would pay so much per month for private healthcare if that's what they do, rather than the NHS payments that we either pay from our salaries or pay directly if we're self-employed.
Yeah, I actually think that it's the Canadians who have the hybrid system.
Right.
Is you pay so much directly into your, or directly X amount is taken off your salary, as opposed to it being hidden in overall taxes.
Yeah.
And it gives you a pretty fair return in terms of what's free. It doesn't give you carte blanche the way that we do, like free boob jobs and bum jobs and so on and so forth on the
Yeah.
NHS.
No, I just think the whole. I
In
think
America,
all of our. Sorry.
yeah. So I think in America, you pay insurance,
Yeah.
and up until you're 65, to cover the costs, which are horrendous in the States.
Yeah.
So it is. I mean, the Medicare issue under Obama was a big issue, and I can't remember exactly what that was, but I think he wanted to cover the lame, the sick, and the elderly, which any civilized state should do. But everybody fought it in the States. They don't like the idea of free care and attention. I must say, if I had to pay for all the pills that I have to bloody well take, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
No, me neither. I take some tablets too, but I couldn't afford it. But I just think the whole, there's not enough staff, and not enough trained staff. As we're sort of taking on. We're compromising really with the quality and caliber of the candidates that are being recruited, because there isn't the source. That's all we've got. We're at the bottom of the fish pond, and I don't mean that detrimentally to anybody. I just mean that the pool is only so big. You can only catch so many fish. So, and there's just not the people. Wherever you go, there's not the people. I went to a DIY shop at the weekend, and I've got quite a lot of tins of paint to carry out. And the guy said, "Do you want a hand?" I said, "Don't worry." I said, "I can see that there's no staff here. There's no staff. You're short of staff." I said, "I'm fine. I'll use it as an exercise class." But that's just there's not enough staff in any of the shops.
Yeah.
So, and then,
why is there a lack of staff, do you think?
There's no money to pay them.
Ah, right.
There's no money, so you can't employ staff. And it's not as if there's not enough of the population, because the population, particularly in Uckfield, is just getting bigger and bigger due to all the housing. But there's not enough money to pay the staff, so they're economising in all areas. And obviously that means that you economise on quality, standard of delivery. So you compromise and economise in all areas.
Yes.
But no one's got any
No.
money.
It seems to me that over the weekend, okay, that's Ada leaving the premises. I read over the weekend that there's a housing estate that's been approved that is going to go smack in the middle of one of the beautiful parts of our East Sussex. I can't remember where, but it's a Paul residence.
It's just devastating.
I personally, it's where it is. I find it depressing that we don't put some money into research on finding how can we provide the housing which apparently seems to be required without devastating our countryside. Because in the long run, what's going to happen is we're going to have we're going to have generations in the future that grow up almost not knowing what a tree looks like. And we haven't got any awareness. Oh, environment, green, yeah. I don't see the green.
No, I'll give you a very good example. At the back of my house is a beautiful community garden that's been protected. I think we've got about 7 or 8 years left on the protection. You used to be able to go through a gate into a massive big field, and you could walk off into woods just behind the Bird and Eye Community Hospital. And so in lockdown, I could go out the gate and walk around, and it was just beautiful. Then they put it up for it was up for development. Then they sold the land, and I still used to sneak in the back with the dog, and it was all overgrown, and it was this most beautiful nature reserve. I mean, there was just wildlife everywhere, and I was utterly fascinated by it. And the next day, I went in one day, and it was spring. Everything was out, and the next day the strimmers started, and they just strimmed the whole field without any. I'd cried because I could see all the wildlife and how many things were killed just by that strimming process, and the wildlife that was displaced. So the cats started bringing slow worms in. Now I've never had slow worms in before because all this nature had nowhere else to go because it was a huge amount of area for. It was just awful, obliterated in a few days.
Yes. I mean, it's all very well to talk about children and even younger adults being unaware of their surroundings and environment and so on, taking the environment away.
Yeah, it was the whole ecosystem that was just taken out, and I still now well up about it because I could see all the wildlife, and I'm a fan of animals and wildlife.
Yeah,
just
absolutely crazy.
They would have been better off just letting people walk on the fields right to the last minute to stop an ecosystem building up.
Yeah. Now your cats and dogs and rabbits and so on disappear over a wall. They obviously have got an environment which they love. How are you going to feel if that's taken away? I mean, we would love to ask your cats, but I don't think they would give us a reply.
Oh, I couldn't even answer that question. I mean, I'm very blessed. I've got a very long garden that leads into this garden, which the cats all adore, and the rabbits are, they're running up and down the garden right now. If I didn't have that space, I'd have to rehome my animals. It wouldn't be fair on them because if it was all urban, they'd probably get run over. The cats, the rabbits. If anyone believes that should be kept in a cage, these rabbits, they're more adventurous than the cats. And Yeah, I'd have to I wouldn't be fair. I would have to rehome them if I didn't have area for them to run around. Wouldn't be fair on them.
So actually, I mean, what I suppose I'm really asking is, is a government, because ultimately you have to get past the government to do these things, but B, the generation that is doing a lot of shouting about the wrong things.
Oh, definitely. And that is the thing, is they give you a picture and you're supposed to shout at A, but they're all shouting at B, and it's completely the wrong direction. It's a very sort of minor illustration that I had last night. Had this frozen ham shanks, and on it said, "Cook from frozen. Empty the pouches into a oven-proof dish." And I was thinking, well, how do I do that if it's frozen? And I put this up on Facebook, and my friends all started telling me how to defrost it. And then another friend was like, "Oh, that's hilarious." And it was for a funny reason. So you can focus on two different things. Some are focusing on how to cook the lamb, which I was quite easily do, or focus on the fact that what a stupid instruction. Empty the frozen pouches. Well, you can't do that.
Have you discovered how to empty the frozen pouches?
Yes. Well, I microwaved them for a bit first, but the whole point was empty the frozen pouches. But this is the focus. If you can give somebody a picture, you can either, it depends what you focus on. You can focus on the instructions, or you can focus on the illustration. That's how I can see.
Yeah, I don't know who writes instructions nowadays, but I find that they either start halfway through or they end halfway through. But nobody gives you the full instructions, and you're left wondering, what the hell do I do here?
And you need a microscope to read them.
Yes.
Magnifying glass.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was just my eyesight going, trying to read instructions. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to either take a picture on my phone and enlarge it, or I have got a magnifying glass on a chain that I take with me. That makes me feel that I'm unable to see.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to go through that. You shouldn't have to do that yourself. If they want you to buy their product, they should make it as easy as possible to use it.
I definitely think the instructions should be larger than the contents. I'd rather want to see what I can, and then I can focus on the contents, because I sort of know what I'm buying. If I'm buying lamb shank, I know it's got lamb in it and a shank.
That's the best.
So I do find it hilarious things. I have to laugh, otherwise you do focus on the negative, like, oh no, I'll cry. But
now, as another story that I thought you might have a comment on is in the metro, punishment isn't working. Apparently, there are up to 280,000 hours of community service that's been handed out by the courts, and the criminal is not fulfilling them, and they're just being written off. You know, I mean, actually, what do people do if somebody is handed out by a court? You've got to do 20 community service hours as your punishment, and they don't do it. What do you do?
I just think it's appalling. I just think I live in a culture, for me, that I am very truthful and very honest. And if I've done something wrong, I hold myself accountable. So therefore, if I had to give 20 hours community service, then I would go and do it. But people just don't. I can't comprehend why if you do the crime, and then you don't take the punishment. It's like just saying there is no crime, so you might as well do away with the crime.
Yeah.
And if they could all be trained on how to fill potholes, I think we would all be very grateful.
Potholes. Isn't that the case? There is a blind eye, apart from the NHS, is yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. We got one of the cats. Which one was that?
That's Tango. Tango's come to say hello. She's Mother Earth. She's the one that comes for walks. Well, I used to when I had somewhere to walk. But I just think that, if they've got all these community service hours, they could be put to such good use. We've got so many things that need to be done and that aren't being done.
Exactly.
I mean, the potholes are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one might say filling in potholes needs machinery and so on and so forth, but it also needs manual labour, doesn't it? And I would have thought that after a little bit of pothole filling, that many people wouldn't want to transgress again in case they got pothole duty. But if in fact they're not being forced to turn up, what's the point?
Yeah, I think they should be. Well, they say fine them, but then they probably haven't got any money to be fined. I don't know how the system works, but I do think that people are given prison sentences. They go to prison. If you're given community service, if you don't do it, there should be some recrimination. There should be a consequence that is worse than what the first point was. You do community service. If you don't do that, then what's enforceable anymore? Everybody has the rights of humanity. Well, maybe too far that they actually go, well, it's against my human right to actually go and do community service.
Yeah.
How are you going to force me? You're not going to force me. And they realise now that actually you can't force them to do it. So therefore there is no punishment. So why should they do it? So there's a whole failure in the system. It's broken, another broken system. And there's not enough people to enforce it. There's not enough people that have to be volunteers to go and supervise them at the week.
No, and not only that, but apparently the courts are, we can't blame the judges and the barristers because they are given a tariff. In other words, for this crime, this is what you're able to hand out as a punishment. But I would have thought that in a court, that's the only time that you find out how severe the crime was. So how do you actually follow a tariff when you're sitting there knowing full well that the guy or the gal in front of you really needs to be very severely dealt with?
I know, and I think our systems now are too antiquated. Society's moved on at such a rate that the whole structure of the country, the economy, they're not keeping up, and they're not working anymore because they're too old. They don't work because they're antiquated. It needs a complete overhaul of the system, and that's a huge amount to do. They're just, if you think back, I got my first mobile phone in 1996, so that's not that far away. So prior to that, I remember the internet, 1990s. So hundreds of years before that, we haven't had that sophistication of technology. So it worked. Now technology is moving at such a huge pace that nobody's keeping up with it.
I know.
And so the systems, again, like you say, community service, that now a lot of community, they do it themselves. We're all very community spirit and community minded. So what I always think they should bring in back is national. Is it national service? That's what I think.
Yes,
and I think that if you've got community service, should be national service and go and if you know what I mean.
Yes, be taken out of society.
And discipline. That's discipline. So they should be. Yeah.
I think you're right, Susie. There isn't enough. I mean, is my late wife. who was full of common sense, sort of said, the punishment doesn't follow the instincts of, for instance, a mother, uh, who is the relationship between a mother and a child is one that can't be legislated, and yet we try to do that in many ways. We pat you on the head and away you go, and you don't do it, and somehow that relationship between the state and the criminal is lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is to that. Perhaps we got to up the relationship between the criminal and the state, so that when they're in court, it is made quite clear you don't actually do this, and you go into the slammer.
And then there's not enough room in prisons, though. So I think that's why I think like the army, the forces, they should be then put into a disciplined structure, such as
so
national service, because
yeah.
that's completely missing now. And even my own children, I cannot discipline my children, and I'm not allowed to raise my voice. I'm not allowed to tell them off. They actually become my parents. I am now the child. And there's a whole reversal of relationships that I now can't do anything. You can't even touch your own child or shout.
This bothers me. I went to school when we were caned in front of the class, and caned really meant caned. I can remember the first time that I was caned is the shock of, oh my God, it's going to happen to me. And I didn't do that. I didn't follow up with doing that particular misdemeanor a second time. But now you're quite right. You can't even raise your voice, and then we wonder why the crime statistics go up.
Exactly. And my brother got caned. I used to get the slipper. My mum used to slap me so hard I'd have fingerprints on my cheek or on the back of my leg where she'd get me. But you could, there were welts. And if I did that to one of my children now, that's social services involved. There's, straight away they will contact the school and the police. You just can't do anything. And obviously they call it it's in extreme circumstances, but I was terrified of my mum in a healthy way, not in a bad way. I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. And what the Americans would call tough love.
Yeah, or if I did it again, I'd make sure she didn't find out.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I got huge amounts of bother for nicking sweets from the sweet cupboard. We had me and my brother and friend, we had a midnight feast, and we read Enid Blyton's. We'd nick the sweets. Bearing in mind these dolly mixtures, there weren't sweets that we could have. That there were only sweets available to my mum. We weren't allowed the biscuits. Only mum could have the biscuits. But we got into massive trouble for nicking the dolly mixture.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is incredible. I mean, I sit in a coffee shop, and mother comes in with little Tommy, and little Tommy walks over and lifts something up on the table that is mine, without any. Now, if I yell at Tommy and say, "Put that back," then suddenly there's a scene with Mummy. But she sees it as a little darling starting to investigate life. BS. That's not investigating life. Investigating life is you do something and you get punished.
Yes, and it's a lesson that they're teaching the children in later life. It's okay to do that. Well, it's not okay. No. It's not okay.
And the fact is that you'll come into conflict with elements that aren't gentle with you. And if you've been taught to very much turn the other cheek, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, is and is the shock is not only painful, but you don't know how to deal with it,
No.
which gives the criminal, the person who wants to use physical force, much more ground, not taking it away.
Yeah, the whole is it called Generation X? Is it? I don't, or I lose track. But the generation that are coming up behind us, for me, is a real worry. A real worry. I have no rights as a parent, absolutely none. So I've had to accept that I was just a conduit to bring two people into the world who've now gone and done their own thing. When it should have been resolved, that they should be living with me, but because I can't do anything, they're allowed to just go and do what they want, and everyone goes, oh, that's okay, he's 17, he's an adult. And my son is not an adult at 17. He doesn't even know how to sweep a kitchen, because I couldn't enforce him helping me in the house. I kept saying, can you help me? Wouldn't help me. And he doesn't know those basic things. I mean, he doesn't know how to iron a shirt at 17. He doesn't know a thing.
In my day, that would have been called spoiled.
Yeah. So my rabbit's eating my flip-flops that I'm wearing. And yes, I would say spoilt. Yes, mummy's boy, you call it, or, you know. And for me, that is the case. And it breaks my heart. If I asked him to go and put the washing on the line, he literally throws it on the line, doesn't hang it, it's just thrown over the top in no order. And I'm not allowed to teach him how to hang the washing, because he'll say, well, this is how I choose to hang the washing. You know, you said hang the washing, you didn't say in this particular way. But I'm not then allowed to show him, because he just say, well, this is my right to be able to do it this way. It's that ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, I find the power that's been handed to children quite frightening. I mean, mixed with millennial approaches to things is potent. My late friend, wonderful guy, formerly of Thames Television, Graham Adicott, told me about they had friends to dinner who reported that their children had told them that they were in their bad books because they used the word feisty. Right? The word, you're not allowed to use the word feisty because it's anti-feminist.
Right.
Feisty means, to me, the word feisty means to be rather bright and energetic and so on, in a sort of perhaps an affirmative way, as opposed to just being jolly. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yes, and feisty, we all know, if you watch The In-Betweeners, I think feisty became, you know, that was a very part of the show. But to be feisty is a classic scene from The In-Betweeners. So you say, oh, feisty, or feisty one.
Absolutely. The more frightening aspect was that the children were going to send their parents to Coventry if they insisted upon using those words. I mean, you know, the fact that children can do that and think that it's morally right.
Yeah. One thing I remember, I was trying to teach my son how to sell on eBay, which, as a techie, he should be showing me. But you know, with the eBay, they choose you a username based on your name. So it came up the word finger, which is FIN, and then G for Geraghty. And he went, I can't use that word. I was like, what do you mean? He says, it sounds too much like the N word. was like, but it's part of your name, and it actually spells finger. It's nothing, and they are so conditioned to think. So he refused to use that word, finger or fingerity, because it sounded like that. I was like, but it doesn't at all. And who makes them think that way?
Well, it comes back to let me tell you that nowadays, anybody who knows me, if I say the day of the Triffids, they know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Is that we are getting too reliant upon computers. Far too reliant. I mean, it is back to the NHS. It is computers that have screwed up the local surgeries. They rely so much on the computer now that they've almost forgotten that a doctor should be doing as much as possible face to face.
Yes. And do you remember the author Dan Brown?
Yes.
He wrote quite a lot of. I mean, the themes behind the books were incredibly forward thinking, and one of those was about a bid. I think it was to take over the world, and it actually came down to it being technology, and it was so spot on that computers will dominate the world, and they do. If the computer doesn't work, we can't do anything. We're absolutely.
That's right.
I love that. The sketch in Little Britain, computer says no. Well, when it says no now, we can't do anything.
You're absolutely right. Actually, the other theme of Dan Brown's was the Illuminati. In other words, I mean, the Illuminati exists. Whether it's Brown's version is correct or not, I don't know. But in the books and in the film, they are secret societies.
Yeah.
And I really get upset at secret societies. I think things should be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
But our governments, not just ours, all over the Western world, are passing legislation that is let us not tell you this, and we're protected by law, and you mustn't say such and such, as once again you're prevented by law. It's triple-edged swords, and that's all wrong. And if people want to, there are 1,000 novels and dozens of articles that point out what happens if you get too restrictive in what you say people can do and they can't do.
Yeah,
I think we're heading for real trouble.
One thing I would say about Dan Brown is one of the books I was reading, I was on my honeymoon, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically all the hammerhead sharks coming up to the surface, and what was happening there was a volcanic eruption under the water. So all the fish and the wildlife were coming to the surface. So this is my honeymoon in December of 2004, and we came back on Christmas Day. We're flying back, and I said, "Oh, all the water has dropped." I said, "All the fish are jumping out of the water." I said, "It's very, very strange." I said, "It's very like this book, the book I was reading." And of course, the next day, tsunami hits, and I was in the Maldives at the time. So if I had more wits about me, I would have known that something was going on in the water that would have created a tsunami, and I could see it happening. I could see the starts of the tsunami, and then we flew home, and we were literally hair's breadth away from it.
Would you, if you'd have stayed on board for a little longer, would you have been a victim of the tsunami?
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, look, we flew back Christmas Day, and it hit early hours of Boxing Day morning. So we had to go back from the Maldives to Sri Lanka to get a plane from Sri Lanka. So we were completely unaware that it was happened. But when I found out, I thought, gosh, I could see it happening in the water. And I felt like I was in a film. I was thinking I could have gone, I know what's going to happen. Quick, there's a tsunami coming.
Yeah.
Because wildlife tells you think why? Because all the fish were literally jumping out of the water, and the water levels have dropped. So, if you can read the signs, read nature, you know what's coming. But that, thank you to Dan Brown, because now if anything happens in the water, I'm running.
Yeah, I mean, when birds and animals get when they start to have certain patterns,
it's like rats leaving a sinking ship, isn't it?
Something they sense things that we don't.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just. Nothing. It's Monday, so things don't happen that should happen.
Yeah, that's every day for me, Keith. Every day's a Monday.
In mood law, every day is a Monday. Believe me, because there's so many things that go wrong. Summer shooting us in the foot, like me calling the black horse the black lion the other day. Only briefly, but of course people notice. have you changed where you're broadcasting from? Poor old Declan is.
It's confusing though. The black horse and the black lion.
I believe isn't there's a lovely pub at Black Boys. I don't know what it's called.
Black Boy Inn.
Is it the Black Boy Inn? It's not.
I'm pretty sure.
The Black Lion.
No, I think it's the Black Boys Inn. Yeah, beautiful old pub. If that's the one I'm thinking of, I can only think of one in Black Boys.
I think there's only one, isn't there, in Black Boys? Black Boys is not very big. Yeah.
No, very lovely. Yeah, very lovely building. Beautiful building.
So, what else has happened to you since you were last on? I think last on with Philip, when you were 5 days ago.
Well, I've been very much head down painting, really, and I'm just a creative flair. So I'm doing creative stuff upstairs, which I love. But whatever I do right now, if it's there to be knocked over, I will. If it's there to be dropped, I will. If it's there to be spilt, I will. Even if it's the opposite side of the room, I'll do something that will create something that will break or spill things. So that's what I just seem to be doing for 5 days. So I did start painting, and after about 2 hours, I thought, okay, I need a new carpet as well.
Yes.
So I've given up on the carpet now.
Many years ago, reading a short story about a husband and wife, and the wife says that she wants just something very small painted. It hadn't been painted for some time. So the husband paints it, and then she says, "Oh, well, now the carpet doesn't fit. We need a new carpet." And the story took you through until this one little thing had created them buying everything new for the house, cost thousands and thousands.
I did something similar. It was silly. I lost my credit card last week. I had to find a particular credit card, and I couldn't see it anywhere. So I started going through the usual places, and then I thought, oh, this drawer's a mess. So to find the card, I then had to clean the drawer. And oh, it's not in this drawer. And I went all the way through all these drawers, about 3 or 4 hours, moving things around. Still didn't find the credit card. So I thought, oh, I'll sit down and have a cup of tea. I sat down on the sofa and the credit card was just on my little table. I was like, oh, 4 hours later, it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, my house is very tidy now.
There's nothing worse than buying something online, can't find your credit card when it comes to payment time, and they say, "Oh, that's okay, we'll wait," and it takes you an hour or two, only to find that you've been on a premium line and it's costing you. No wonder they don't care whether you find it in the short term or long term. They're gaining
Yeah.
money.
Do you remember the what was the ad for 118 wasn't it? The two guys.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, I remember doing that once. This is going back a few years now, but they didn't say it's a premium line. And for some reason, I was out walking the dog, and the call didn't get disconnected. And my phone bill came in at £200, and it was yeah. And because I hadn't somehow disconnected this 118 call, well, they hadn't, so obviously disputed it. But absolutely ridiculous. But you don't see those adverts anymore, so you know why.
You can push things. Perhaps it was just a get rich quick scheme, and
yes,
they looked at the bank balance and said, "We made enough. People will tumble to us. Now we'll stop it."
yeah, just phenomenal. Yeah. Now, obviously, we've got Google everything.
Isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm.
But I still find it confusing. I mean, this is probably because of age. Youngsters don't find it confusing, but I find it confusing as to what you're buying and what you're not. Because you couldn't say, put in, well, sort of things that I would look for is a free, video pictures, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll come up on the search with 20 free. But what it's looked for is the word free. And when you get there, it gets to free trial,
Mm-hmm.
and put in your credit card, and we won't charge you until you've gone through your free trial period. And so that's not what I was looking for.
No.
And if I do, what I found is it is very easy to give your credit card to the start of a free trial, and it's bloody difficult to try and stop it because the procedures are 10 times more complicated and obviously deliberately so. So I got to the point where I think that there's not much it's free on the internet.
No, I fell foul of Apple TV. So free trial of Apple TV, and then it's, I don't know, $7.99 a month. Could I cancel it? No. And I went through all of this, cancel this subscription, and it would never get to the next point. So in the end, I just had to go through the bank and call it fraud. So I got my money back that way. But there's no way I could cancel it. So beware of Apple TV. And these little amounts as well, that they go under the radar. You might, if you miss them, and I missed that one, but and there was another one. He's got I got some free beauty products. Put your credit card details in. And what it doesn't say is that after a certain amount of time, if you haven't actually, but it does, but really teeny print, if you haven't returned them, you will get charged, I don't know, it's about £300 or something crazy for this product. But so you either use it and pay for it, or you don't use it and send it back. So, well, how do you know if it works? So you're stuck. You're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you ever? I've still got things on my bank statement. I have no idea what they are. They're only £6 or £7. But all you got to do is have half a dozen, £6 or £7, and you got a substantial amount of money, and for something you have no idea that you are signed up to.
Right, that's what we'll be doing this week then, Keith. So I want to go and make sure you're not paying for things you're not supposed to be paying for.
Absolutely. And
Because they do.
the banks are complicit in this. You know, the banks try to sound as if they're squeaky clean and the guardian of what you spend and what you don't. On the contrary, they're hand in glove with a lot of these organizations, and they make it very easy for them to sort of take money off you and without you knowing. Which brings me
Very sneaky.
to another one of my bugaboos, and that is the direct debit. The direct debit is absolutely iniquitous because it is set for a certain date, but I don't get my money in on, and mine is a movable feast because most of my money comes from my pension, which is once every 4 weeks, not once every month. So it moves through the month. So sometimes it fits in with my direct debits, and sometimes it doesn't. But if in fact it causes me to go over, there's no apology, particularly from the bank. And whoever it is that's got the direct debit doesn't sort of say, "Oh well, we understand." And I mean, the biggest direct.
Oh, go on.
Sorry? Yeah, go on.
And if you miss it, you get charged an admin fee. I'm like, what's the admin fee for?
Well, you know, it's a punishment, really. But you know, why am I dealing with people who punish me? And because the system favors them, it doesn't favor me. And I've actually tried phoning people on direct debits and say, look, there will be some times that I will go over because my money doesn't come in until 2 days after your direct debit or whatever. Oh, yes, we'll make a note on your account. Do they? Heck. They say they're going to, but obviously they get to a supervisor somewhere and say, no, you can't do that. So you're quite right. You get dinged. Is it £4 or £8 or for being out of kilter?
I'm also being self-employed as well. You know, some months I can have a fair amount of work. Some months I can have a very minimal amount of work.
Exactly.
So, and you know, that goes for many self-employed. Like I know at the end of this month I've got a holiday, and in the middle of next month I've got a holiday. So that's two weeks of income that I won't have. So it's going to be very tight for me. So
they still expect you to.
Yeah.
And
I can't earn enough money to put in the bank for savings because most of everything I earn goes straight out back on bills.
Yeah.
I only really get food out of it.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But we've all been conditioned into thinking these things should be the norm.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for my partner, I wouldn't be going away. Bless him, he's financing both our trips away because there's nowhere on earth that I could just afford to go away. On my own income. As many other people can't.
I really am the old school. I never my wife always looked after the finances. She wasn't a bookkeeper, but she used to give me a fiver and say, "There, make that last," and I did. I disciplined myself the fact I got £5, and the rest, God only knows. I mean, I'm sure she was spending it on looking after the house and making sure that I got my caviar and champagne with every meal and all that. But handling a budget, a household budget, is a skill. We don't all have it.
No.
and that's when it gets into trouble. But financial institutions, they should be aware of some of the common problems of their clients, and they're not. They don't try at all to help or be helpful. In fact, on the contrary, all they understand are punishments.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I find that financial institutions in the main don't have people, because they now rely so much on computers, is that they don't have people who are trained in their particular ways, and that they just guess if you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And that gets you into trouble.
I guess it's like the tin heart, the scarecrow, the Tin Man, isn't it? Without the hearts.
Yeah.
It's all,
That's
it's
right.
all about the Tin Man. Everything's run without a heart involved because it's run by technology. There's no human element to it.
Yeah. Actually, you do raise another good point. Is now, because you're dealing with computer, is all emotion has gone out of it. I mean, at one time, I used to be able to phone and say to my bank manager, "Look, it's I'm 2 days out. Can you cover me?" And because he knew my track record and knew me, he said, "Yeah, sure, Keith, that's okay."
Yeah.
Now they haven't even got a manager that you can phone. I mean, you talk to somebody who is assigned to a specific task, lost credit cards or whatever, but a manager is not amongst them.
No, my mum used to go to see the bank manager, and yes, but even so, even that, sometimes I don't even know if I'm talking to a robot or a person. And also, when you have to go through and say, "I am not a robot," and you have to pick out the traffic lights.
Oh, yeah.
I fail that every time.
Oh, yes, me too. They make it so complicated. Click on everything with a railway line in it.
I know.
You can't tell whether there's a railway line in some, and sure enough, it comes up, "You have failed. Try again."
Or if there's a bus, and you think, well, if the wing mirror of the bus is in the picture, do you click it because there's still the buses in the picture, or are you clicking the main part of the bus? It's like, I failed my own security once. And they sent me all these pictures, questions about my Facebook account to get through security. And they were like, "Are you friends with so and so?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. I've probably got millions of them. I don't know friends anymore." When did you last message that person? I haven't got a clue.
Oh, yeah. What was the last amount you spent out of your account? I have no idea. None whatsoever. Yeah.
If you don't get it right, you failed.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think that I get rid of my financial work for an hour a week. But no. They try to give it to you as 5 hours a day.
I remember I had an issue with PayPal once, and I didn't realise I'd done 2 PayPal accounts, one with one email and one with another. So the one in question I was trying to speak to this guy about, I was giving him the wrong email address each time I went through security. And all the other questions were right, and he said, "You failed again." And then he would go through it again and give the same answers. He said, "You failed." I'm like, "Well, can you just tell me where I failed?" "No, I can't. We have to go through it all again." And I did. I mean, I was hours because I was like, "I know." And I said, "Can't you just give me a hint?" And he did just give a slight hint about just look at your email address again. I'm like, "Could you not have told me that 2 hours?" Honestly, it was 2 hours doing this. And once I realised I was using the wrong email address, I was through my own security. But I was just crazy. I was almost in tears going, "No, please just give me a hint to why I'm failing."
Yeah, you would think the credit card companies, particularly, and the banks, would actually research very carefully the things that cause problems for their clients, customers, and make some sort of provision likewise. But they don't seem to.
No.
They don't seem to. It's just awful. There we are. There we are. That's the world into which we are now thrust. And I don't like this world very, very much. It's no fun anymore.
I was thinking that over the weekend. I was thinking, this is just not fun, really, isn't it? And you go out and everyone's miserable. I don't go out much anymore because it's all just everyone. When you see people, it's all just
gloom and doom. Yeah,
gloom. Yeah, that's it. And I'm an empath, so I take that away with me. And I'm like, I'd rather just not speak to anybody at the moment. Apart from people I know are uplifting and positive, I just can't bear the weight of the world. It's heavy enough on its own without people contributing to it.
Yeah.
So I stick to my bunny rabbits and painting and cats and remain positive and strong in my own bubble, really.
Yes, it's absolutely. I mean, you're right, and it's often said that when banks are removed from towns, that's where particularly some of the older people used to congregate, and they would meet people. And now the banks have gone, so they don't have a meeting point. They get stuck at home, and suddenly you've got ill health, a problem, a social problem. And it isn't fair. It isn't good.
No, I asked my partner was coming. He's been doing a lot of work at my house, but he'd gone home, and I said, "Oh, can you just pick up a green pepper for me?" And then he went, "All right, well, I've got these other tasks, and then I'll go to Tesco to pick up a pepper for you." And I said, "Oh no, don't. I said, don't get like a trip to Tesco." And it suddenly struck me: you can't just go into a greengrocer's and grab a green pepper. Not in Uckfield anyway. You have to go into a superstore, and that takes time. It takes effort. You will probably buy something other than what you actually want, or you might bump into people. And it's not just let's just pop in the shop and grab a pepper.
Now, talking about that, I mean, what happens, for instance, if you need to buy a hammer in Uckfield? Where do you go?
I go. We've got quite a few of the hardware. We've got Screwfix, we've got Greens DIY. So there's quite a lot of those sort of. There's the industrial estate that's got a lot of shops and that.
You mean places like B&Q?
We haven't got a B&Q. I go to Greens DIY. They're very good there. They have a lot of things, but we've got.
Well, I mean, perhaps I'm using the wrong. I mean, in Lewis, the only place we've really got left that fulfills the hardware thing is Argos. You have to go to Argos.
Right.
9 times out of 10 is they've got it, but not in store. I mean, gone are the days when you knew that you got a hardware store. We had a very good one in Lewis. You needed to buy a screw or something. And learning that, but it's very difficult not to buy things online from Argos, for instance. I'm not picking on Argos, but thank God they're there because there's nothing else. But you've got to buy a package of screws. Whereas the old hardware store used to have these screws in a little bin, and you just picked how many you wanted.
Greens is like that. You're going to bring me onto a lemon story now. So a certain gentleman wanted 1 lemon last week in his shopping, as I do. So I went to the well-known shop called beginning with A, Aldi, and there was not only you can only buy packets of lemons. So I saw that one had crept out of a bag of lemons. It was this singular lemon. So I thought, oh great, that'll do. And I thought, I wonder if I get to the till, they're going to make me buy 4. So I just sort of blagged it at the till and I go, oh, we don't sell loose lemons. I was like, oh, it was on its own. And instead of just saying, because what they then did is took the lemon away and put it for somewhere probably to be destroyed. So I then had to buy 4 lemons, and then I could just see this little lemon sitting there going to be destroyed. I was thinking, I only wanted 1 lemon, and now that's going to go to the lemons in the sky. So what a crazy system. I just said, well, do you know what? It's going to be destroyed if it's not in a pack of 4, so you might as well have that one. So yeah, you can't buy a single lemon in Aldi's.
No, you can't. You can't at most stores. Yeah.
I only want 1. I don't want 10.
I
I just
know
want 1.
exactly. Yeah.
And the other 9 rot in the fruit
Now
bowl.
they're sending you to go and divorce, and marry somebody who will eat 4 lemons.
And so then you have to think of recipes that include lemons or drink them in your tea, because I don't want to waste the lemons when I only wanted 1. Good for you.
Susie, we're just a couple of minutes from past.
Yeah.
What else is on your cards for the week?
This week I've got quite a busy week. Just meeting a couple of new clients this week. So a couple of introductions for some more work coming up. So Wednesday I'm with you on Friday. Yeah, so Wednesday and Friday are quite busy. And I start my aerial yoga course on Thursday in Lewis. So I'm quite excited about that.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm glad that you're busy. We both are having the typical problems dealing with bureaucracy, but that's another story for another day.
Well, I've had a couple of phone calls coming in whilst we've been talking. I think that's the bureaucrats ringing me because it's an unknown number. And people ringing me this early on a Monday morning, they obviously don't know me.
Well, I'm going to respond. I don't normally respond until after the program, but since this is fairly important, I'm going to respond now and play a little music for our viewers just while I do that. So you're next on with Phil on Wednesday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So a really busy week for you.
Yes, and we'll see within 2 days what's happening in the world at war.
Yes, absolutely.
War of the world, should we say?
Yeah, I must confess, I'm not feeling exactly full of the joys of spring this morning. I haven't started the week with the bounce in my step. Let's hope it gets better. Well, seeing you, my dear, has made me feel a little happier. So perhaps we're on the upward curve now.
You and I both. So let's get a bit more bounce.
Absolutely. Bouncy.
Yeah, maybe that's because there's a new handrail on your bed to stop you bouncing out of bed, Keith. You've lost your bounce.
All right. Well, we'll talk later.
Yeah, have a lovely day. We'll talk later.
And you too. Good to see you.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay. There we go. So what we will do now is we'll take a 5-minute break and see you in a little while. Well, here we are back again. Let's just stop the music, shall we? There you go. We've got Philip and Harry coming up. That's 20 minutes away. So let's fill that 20 minutes by doing what we've started to do. We played you episodes 1 and 3 from the bloody past of the tiny town and documentary. And so it's time to go for part 4. So let's do that now without further ado. He said with some confidence. There we go.
Vroom, vroom. The other day I felt a warmth between myself and Mole and Ratty, the 2 little characters from Wind in the Willows, as I sat on the banks of the River Ouse and let it drift by. Vroom, vroom. Today I feel more like Toad of Toad Hall, the animal that was always getting himself into trouble because of his excesses. Vroom. But horsepower is the essence of this episode, because horses played a central part in the history of Lewis. And as might be expected, were often at the centre of violence, adding to the history of a bloody town. Horses, of course, were nothing unique to Britain. Cavalry had been a major part of warfare, and peaceful farming from time to time immemorial. But for Lewis in early times, they were an important part of its economy. The Domesday Book, the first ever audit of England in 1086, records that anyone selling a horse in Lewis should pay to the reeve or estate manager a penny. The buyer also paid a penny. So a horse tax was in place more than 1,000 years ago. And so the horse took centre stage from the earliest of Norman times. I've shown you the tilting grounds where knights on horseback tried to unseat each other. But that was nothing compared to the violence that Lewis races brought to the town. But I get ahead of myself. Lewis was one of the most famous racecourses in history until 1965. The 4th oldest in the country, racing began in 1727. Although some argue there is evidence it was 26 years before that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lewis. It's the final race meeting here at Lewis, Monday, September the 14th, 1964. The ground is firm and the wind is straight across the course. The runners for the first race, the Cookmere Apprentices Handicap, are on their way to the start. Saucy Lad representing Tom Masson in the purple with the gold star. Number 11 is Nimberg. And away they go. They're off and racing, and Buzz made a bright start there and leads in the early stages. And now a little bit of a rise as they race past the mile marker and head towards the right-hand turn, which will bring them into the home straight. Closing stages with less than 100 yards left to travel. It's Buzz pulling clear, and Buzz goes on to win by about 3 lengths to Misty River in second, Saucy Lad back in third, Great Lady, Nimberg Wave, Methane, the Wolf, and St. Kieran.
In that year, after almost 300 years of horse racing, it closed down for good, mainly because it had no electricity, no running water, in fact, no facilities at all. Yet in the late 18th century, it attracted royalty, the big gamblers of the day, and it produced some champion racehorses over the years that brought great races and great feats to an otherwise pretty but blustery track atop the Downs. Considered by racing folk as the greatest racehorse of all time, Eclipse raced there in 1769. The Derby winner of 1793, Waxy, was a Lewis-trained horse, as was Charlottetown in 1966. Great jockeys rode there, such as Lester Piggott and Gordon Richards. And Barry, you've, although it started in 1720 or so, you weren't here then, but you were, as a very young boy, involved in this racecourse.
Yeah, I certainly was, yeah. I'd say I was born on race day, 29th of August 1950. My mum's side of the family were all racing people, going back hundreds of years probably, so, you know, my gran used to take us up here.
It's very quiet and serene today, so what was it like on race days up here?
Very, very noisy. Hustle and the bustle of coaches coming up here, cars. I mean, all these places over here were car parks. You had all the horse boxes, the tote men, tic-tac men shouting the odds and everything else. Lots of entertainment going on, you know, and it was very, very busy. A 4-mile race which started right down the bottom of the hill there. The horses used to run right down there as far as you can see, and come back down here to the winning post.
Right.
They used to have 2 winning posts. They used to have a 5 furlong winning post and a 6 furlong winning post. But what they wanted to do, they made the 6 furlong winning post another furlong away from the stand, because they both wanted to start them on the straight. Otherwise it was unfair, so they had a straight run.
Right.
In 1914, I think it was 14, they shut that down because they found it was too dangerous. And not only that, for the horses to get up that hill. They used to start them from here, they run them down there, round the loop and back again. And that made 4 miles, but it had to be like the best out of 3 or something.
Right.
So some of them horses run 12 miles
Yeah.
just to win a race. They had 10 minutes break, they got back after about 9 or 10 minutes, they'd have a bucket of water, drink and wash down, and back they used to go again. After a while, it just phased out a little bit. It used to be a 3-day meeting in August, and then it got to that it was just going to be a day a year. And it got to the stage where it was just one race, and all the horses in that race were trained in Lewis. And the guy that wrote about it, you know, he said this is probably going to be the last day.
There are many in Lewis who are still resentful that the course was closed. It brought a good deal of cash to the town. Lewis had many racing stables, and a thriving racing community numbered as many as 60 establishments. But perversely, it was responsible for cleaning up the sport, despite suffering a bout of violence. The early part of the 20th century saw the rise of vicious gangs around the country. These gangs often fought each other, but to keep cash in their pockets, they targeted racecourses. They would secretly ease their way into courses and then meet up to viciously attack and rob bookies. Racegoers, and even jockeys. They were feared at race meetings throughout Britain. And so it was on a June afternoon in 1936. London villain James Spinks and his gang turned up at Lewis for an attack on bookies. They gathered, some 30 strong, on the edge of the racecourse, ready to pounce. And pounce they did. They attacked and savagely beat a bookie and managed to rob him. But not known to them, 2 CID officers had been posted in the grounds. The 2 detectives alerted their fellow coppers and raced towards the gang. According to some reports, a rival gang got into the act and all hell broke loose. It must have been some sight. Villains scattering in all directions, Keystone cops were in full chase, and the excited racegoers panicked and dived for cover. But it was the police on this day at Lewes Racecourse who passed the winning post. They managed to nick 16 of the gang, took them to Lewes, where they were sentenced to long prison terms. That put an end to the decades-old practice of course hijacking by these fearless and vicious gangs.
A real feather in the cap of the Lewes coppers. Nabbed.
Pulling you aside, locals will whisper in your ear that Graham Greene's Brighton Rock was really about Lewes Racecourse. They say the gang fight in his novel was based on the events of Lewes in 1936. To think that Pinky strode this course, what a ghost to have here now. Pinky wasn't in the pub, that's for sure, but I bet you he wouldn't have bought me a drink anyway. Talking of betting, the Prince Regent helped pack the crowds into Lewes Racecourse. The high and the mighty liked rubbing shoulders with him, and the humble and lowly liked rubbernecking. Accurate figures weren't kept in those early days, but estimates vary that crowds reached between 10 and 20,000 spectators. That was on special race days. The course also provided national champions, and one horse is buried here along with his rider, galloping the old Lewes Racecourse in perpetuity. But the love of horses by the Prince Regent could well have resulted in his early demise. He was a betting man and a daredevil. As I've mentioned, the future king drove a coach and four down this street. There is no written evidence that the story is strong enough for this sign to be erected by the local council. The prince was often in Lewes, and a renowned gambler was part of his inner circle. Sir John Larday, a successful racehorse owner, lived in Lewes, was colourful, resided on the High Street, and was a gambler and horseman. His wife Letitia was equally as colourful. Accomplished coach driver, she had been the mistress of a convicted highwayman. The Prince, Sir John and their circle were notorious enough from their lifestyle as it was. But hell-raising Sir John went down in history for a wager in Brighton. He bet a larger and heavier man that he could carry him piggyback over Steen. When the man showed up, Larday insisted the man stripped naked because the bet didn't include carrying his clothes. This was the street that the Prince Regent drove his coach and four down. I tried walking up it. That's tough enough. But coming down is oh, impossible. So speculation has it that it was Larday, or perhaps even his fascinating wife, who urged the prince to make the bet. History records that he won the bet, not on any betting slip, but because the prince went on to become King George IV. In an earlier episode, we took a look at the castle tilting ground. Tilting, or trying to knock an opponent off a horse, was originally military training. But later it became sport. Knights won large purses in tournaments and won accolades from ladies for their prowess. Ordinary folk couldn't compete. They were forced to be spectators, but they had their own violent sport in the form of folk football. This precursor to our modern game raged across the countryside with whole villages chasing a pig's bladder. It was so violent that kings from the 13th to the 17th century tried to ban it. But I digress. Tilting, of course, involved horses. And it was a sport that eventually gave way to a calmer pastime. The Lewes tilting ground became a bowling green in 1640. Not a horse in sight. But typical of Lewes, it still plays the game the way Sir Francis Drake played it. And it is said gave inspiration to Tom Paine to write his Rights of Man after playing here. The horse has never really disappeared from history. Fox hunting is recorded in Sussex in the late 18th century. But in Lewes, a traditional meeting of huntsmen on Boxing Day didn't begin until the early 20th century. Now, each year, the Southdown and Erridge huntsmen gather on Boxing Day ready to ride to hounds. As you might expect, this occasion has contributed to violence on Lewes High Street. Protesters have turned up for decades to protect the killing of foxes. It is now, of course, against the law to kill foxes this way. But it doesn't stop the protesters. Lewes is still a rural country town, so thousands turn out to cheer the riders down the high street. Clashes are inevitable, and each year they occur. No deaths, but the odd bloody nose, as being in a bloody tiny town. When the hunt meets outside and there are loads of protesters in balaclavas and so on, who strides out with a stirrup cup, the tray held in the air, and offers a drink to the huntsman? It's Cliff. How does it feel going out to face the mob?
Well, I suppose it can be quite scary at times, but I kind of feel that it's very necessary to keep the tradition going, as the master of the house has done this for about 150 years or so. And I've just trotted out for the 29th year, the 29th time, with the stirrup cup for the Southdown and Erridge hunt.
So and you always do it, it's always you. Yeah.
It's something God willing, I'd like to keep going.
Well, you've got a cheering section in me, because I'm always there saying, "Go, Cliff, go!" I think it doesn't matter which side I take. It's a very brave thing to go out, and tradition is tradition, and it should be maintained.
I totally agree with that. And there's about 3,000 people out there cheering you on, so it's rather nice. Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about horses, I mean, this is an old coaching inn.
Yes, well, it became an inn, a coaching inn, about 300 years ago. And I was doing a little study some years ago when I was looking at previous owners from that time. And within that 300-year period, I've just found out that I'm the longest standing owner in the whole period, in the whole time.
Yeah.
So, with 28 years to my name.
For many years, this town, like many in England, had horse-drawn vehicles of bread and milk delivered by horse-drawn cart. But remember the past and 63 pubs in Lewes. Yes, you've guessed it, so was beer. And it still is. So deep is the horse embedded in Lewes society that the remaining town brewery, Harvey's, still delivers its products in a horse-drawn dray. And it tastes all the better for it. Well, every other Tuesday you deliver in a very traditional way, do you not?
We do. We have our horse and dray wandering around the streets of Lewes. Lewes not very kind to horses, very steep hill, but they manage very well. And it's a marvellous attraction. I mean, it's a good tourist attraction, and I think the town have taken the horses to their hearts.
Well, I think that's very true. Yeah, I mean, they're magnificent creatures. So I'm closing this episode on a relatively modern phenomenon. Horse whispering. This technique, made famous in a Hollywood movie, is often seen as a modern technique. But horse whispering has been around for centuries. They just didn't boast about it. That was because they were thought to be witches. Witches were executed in a variety of ways. But after a French horse whisperer in the 18th century was burned at the stake along with his horse, others kept quiet. There's no record that horse whisperers were ever burned in Lewes. We were too busy burning humans. But the craft stayed below the surface. Because Lewes was known for being a town of witchcraft. That's a story for another day. But whispering is alive and well in Lewes. The horse. A part of Lewes history from Saxon times to this very day.
We've talked horses today, how the Lewes Hunt tears down the High Street on Boxing Day, how the Prince Regent risked his neck by driving a coach and four down Keir Street, and how the old Lewes racecourse at one time flourished, but today is lost, thankfully not forgotten. Oh, exhausting. I feel like a drink. No pub up here. Whoa!
There we are. An interesting period, particularly the history of Lewes race course, which is still somewhat controversial. Certainly the town is not as rich as it was in either culture or money as when it flourished. Now, I'm not certain whether we're going to our other studio, which is now at Arundel, or here. So I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll be back in 5 minutes with one or the other. Toodles. Yes. Toodles, he said. Here we go.